There are more and more current accounts, switch offers, and rewards that require direct debits active on the account to trigger that free cash. Now, for some of you, that might not be an issue. You might have a couple of direct debits. That's all you need, and you're all the way good to go. But if you have run out of them for whatever reason, maybe you don't actually pay some of those really obvious bills that would qualify. Maybe you've got multiple current accounts that you're trying to get free money from, which all require some direct debits. And then you're going, where do I go? Where do I get these? Or it might be you haven't got very long to set up some of these direct debits in order to take advantage of those offers, in which case you need some which are pretty fast and simple to set up. Well, don't worry, I will take you through all the different options, so there's going to be more than enough different things for you to try if you do need a direct debit on your current account. Before we go into this, very quickly I want to talk about the term active direct debit, because this is something you often see in those promotions. What is an active direct debit? Well, it's a bit of a grey area, and I like to sort of err on the side of caution here. I like to go with definitely something. It's definitely an active direct debit to say it has been paid out of the account that it needs to be paid out of, whether that's the old one that it switched from, whether it's the new one that you switched to, or the new one every month to trigger those rewards. I want to make sure money has come out of it, then I know it properly is active. Now, most of the time, it doesn't actually need to do that. Most of the time, it just needs to be showing on the account in question, either before the switch or after the switch or every month, and you're going to be okay. But I do like to try and make sure the money has gone out. And that's why when I mentioned about some quick and fast ones, they're often ones you might want to prioritize over the others if you're moving things around, because they can potentially be done in less than a week, whereas a normal direct debit may well be you're looking at a month before that money comes out. So where should we start? Let's start with a really obvious one, shall we? Let's start with your bills, because most of us are paying bills, and most of us pay bills by direct debit, or if we don't, we can. Key ones here: energy bill, council tax, broadband, phone, your pay TV like Sky or Virgin, mobile phone bill, water bill. They are all ones that someone in a household, we're going to be paying those. Of course, if you share a household, share the bills, you might actually be responsible for these, so you might not have them. But if you do, they're obvious ones. But what I would say here is, if you are paying those bills, then I would be looking at the Santander Edge current account, because you will earn 1% cash back on all of those. There is a monthly fee. I have covered it in detail elsewhere, so do look into that more information before you go for it. But that's certainly a good place to go for those particular bills. If you're an older Santander customer, you might even have the 123 or the 123 Lite, which pay even higher rates of cash back. But that's a great place for all of those. There are other bills, though, which don't work with Santander's accounts for cashback, which you could look at again for direct debits. Your TV license. If you pay for insurance monthly, although there is often an extra charge for doing that, if you can afford it, it's often better to pay for insurance annually. And similarly with your vehicle tax, again, they often charge you more to pay for it every single month, but you can pay for it by direct debit every month. So they are all a number of direct debits straight away that if you need just a couple, you haven't got or don't want that Santander account, they are going to cover you as long as you pay them. Now, if you don't pay those ones, then you could look at other kind of regular payments. And this is where people often get confused, the difference between a direct debit and a regular debit card or credit card payment. The latter is something called a continuous payment authority. And this is when you pay with a long card number rather than your setting up the direct debit, which requires your account number and your sort code. Okay, they are very different. They will not count, these CPAs will not count towards any of these offers. But there is a way you can hack those regular payments. And that is if you pay for them. This is things like Spotify, Netflix, membership to the gym or English Heritage. Maybe you've got a subscription for a magazine or a food box or a wine box, whatever it might be. If you're paying with those via a credit card, and credit cards, don't be scared of credit cards. There are lots of good benefits that come with them. Section 75 consumer protection, you get cash back with a lot of them, all sorts of things that are worth looking at. They can help improve your credit score. So long as you do clear the balance completely every single month, they can be good for you. Pay for these services with a credit card and then set up a direct debit from the current account that requires a direct debit to pay off that credit card. Now, ideally, you do this for the full amount to avoid any interest charges coming to the credit card. And if you're using a cashback credit card on a regular basis anyway, that's going to be fine. But if it's just one of those other services, I do this potentially. You could put like Netflix every single month on there. It comes out every month. That might be the only thing on that credit card. And the direct debit comes through, pays that off that amount every single month for that subscription. Sorted. Another direct debit for your current account. And in fact, you could have a number of different credit cards. Just make sure you do an eligibility search when you're applying for these. You want to apply for too many in a short space of time if you don't have any right now. Apply for a number of these and you could potentially have 2 different direct debits, 3 different direct debits if you need them, paying those regular subscription payments, or if you're using the cashback and things like that as you go along. So that's another good one to think about. You can also do this for buy now, pay later services like Klarna. Just make sure, and a similar thing with any of these kind of connections, if it gives you the choice between connecting to your debit card or your bank account, you want to make sure you're connecting to the bank account. That's the only way the direct debit is going to come through. Connected to your debit card, then that's a debit card payment, not a direct debit. So it won't count where these offers are concerned. Another hack that's very similar to this is PayPal. I actually use this for my Spotify account. I pay Spotify via PayPal, and then PayPal is connected to a bank account, which when the money comes out, it takes it via direct debit from that current account. So again, every single month, I've got a regular direct debit coming through for something which wouldn't normally be paid by a direct debit. So that's a really simple one to set up. You can also, if you don't want to do it automatically, you can actually make manual payments with PayPal as well. So as long as you've connected it again to your current account, not your debit card, you can add money and it will take it as a direct debit as you go along. Now, sometimes people have issues with this one, so definitely wouldn't leave this to last minute. If you're thinking about setting it up, maybe try and do it early on, just in case you experience issues and you need to go to one of the other options we've got. Similar to this is something called Currensea. Currensea is a pretty decent backup card for when you're spending overseas. This is where you connect the Currensea account, which is a debit card, to your bank account. And when you use the Currensea card to spend, it then, similar to PayPal, takes the money from the underlying current account via a direct debit. But ideally, this is, again, for using it overseas. Not the best card, but it's useful to use, but you can use it at home. Again, you can set it up. If you just need one for a switching deal, have it on the account, have some money coming through, and that's a nice quick one to set up. Now, this next one we'll talk about is something which I think is well worth doing, but not in all cases. And this is a charity donation direct debit. If you are already giving money to charities, then doing it via direct debit is win-win. They get the money on a regular account basis, and you have a direct debit on your account for these perks and bonuses. And maybe if you're not paying by direct debit, you're paying by payroll giving or some other ad hoc method, whatever it might be, or just transferring money on a regular basis, but doing it manually, swapping it over can be a good alternative to some of the other ones we mentioned already. What I wouldn't suggest you do, though, is you set these up for small amounts just to get a one-off switching deal or whatever, because there are costs associated with the charities. You might think you're doing a good thing, giving them £2 for 2 or 3 months and then cancelling it. But actually, there's a lot of cost that comes in the back end of that. So I would rather you give a larger amount on an ongoing basis if you can afford it, or don't go down this route. But definitely if you're already paying for charity donations, but not by direct debit, moving them over can be a good option. Now let's get on to similar to kind of what I spoke about recently, a spending card hack where you're sending money to yourself. You can do a similar thing. There are some, not many, but a number of savings accounts that will allow you to use a direct debit to transfer the money across. So again, you're not actually haven't got any bills to cover, anything like that. You're not setting up something new. The money is going to you, and then you can pay it back to yourself later on. Handful of these. Moneybox does this. Plum does this. They're the ones that I've mainly used in the past for my switching deals. Pretty simple to set up, and also talk about fast direct debits. Very fast to set up as well. So you will go in to those apps. You will connect the current account. You will set up how much money you want to send over. Now, with Plum, there is an auto savings option, so that money comes over. You don't have to worry about it, just keeps doing it. And Moneybox, you generally set up a £2 minimum that, again, will automatically move over on a regular basis. Do just check, obviously, that you're not locking yourself in. Make sure you've got the easy access options or the limited access ones. So Moneybox, for example, with their savings account rather than their investing account, there's only one withdrawal a month. So if you're sending over 2 or 3 payments, maybe 4 once a week, you obviously want to make sure you do the withdrawal at the same time and bring it back to your other accounts. And Plum as well, similar sort of basis there. Once it's all sitting there a while, there's okay interest in both of them, but you might want to transfer them back to yourself for a better rate at a later date. Now, there have been some experiences personally and other people where Plum hasn't transferred over during a switch. So do just make sure if it's one of your direct debits that it's gone over. But I've done so. I've used both Moneybox and Plum a number of times for switches. I've never missed out on the switching cash because of any issues there when the Plum was moved over, but the money hasn't come over from underneath it. You also could be looking, I wouldn't necessarily suggest you do this one, but Park Christmas Saver. It's one of those Christmas saving schemes. You can do a similar thing. The problems here are the money isn't protected by the Financial Services Compensation Scheme. I know we're only talking about small amounts of money being moved over, but again, you might lose that money if they were to go bust. Plus, you can only cash out for gift vouchers. It's from September, October, and November each year. So it's going to be longer in that account, not earning interest. But again, it's one to consider as an extra option if you need to. Investing, I mentioned, pretty touched there that Moneybox, you can do the same sort of thing with them. There are a few others as well. AJ Bell, Climate, eVesta, Invest Engine, Nutmeg, Money Farm, Vanguard, and of course Moneybox as well. I'm sure there are others as well. Obviously, it works that same principle. You're giving your money to yourself by a direct debit. So again, you're not losing out. But of course, investing on the whole, you should be thinking about this for the long term. So if you are thinking about this for a small switch, a quick switch, putting that money in there might be some restrictions. There might be some quite higher minimum thresholds as well. So they're more to think about. If you're investing anyway and your platforms let you do this, then why not make sure that's there as part of your requirements for those switching deals, those bank requirements. But otherwise, maybe not one for everyone. And very finally, a couple of others to consider where you are paying for a service, and this might be a service that you use, you might not, but ultimately, I wouldn't go too far. This is if the other ones have really used all those up and you can't, you really need an extra direct debit somewhere. You could try The Guardian. It's a minimum of £2 every single month. Basically, that just gives you your support in The Guardian and you get ad-free access to their app. The National Lottery, £1 per game. That's every week, obviously, so roughly £4 a month, and maybe you'll win something ultimately. Similarly with the Health Lottery, that's a kind of similar sort of deal as well there. There are more expensive ones like the Postcode Lottery, which is £12 a month. Again, I wouldn't encourage you to do this just to get a direct debit, just for a switching deal. But if you're doing it anyway, then make sure that's part of the accounts that are required. And then these last two I'm going to tell you about are ones that I personally haven't used. I personally wouldn't use them because we've gone through so many other options already. But if you do need very, very, very short notice direct debit to come out of your account for these promotions, they are worth a look. They are cheap, but you are not getting anything in return. So you've got to weigh up how that works and compare to the ultimate total offer you might be getting. These are 50p direct debits and tiny direct debits. There have been predecessors to this which have gone out of business with other names you might be familiar with, but these are the ones at the time of recording this are still working. 50p direct debits, as the name suggests, sets up a direct debit for 50p a month. Tiny direct debits is a minimum of £1 a month, and they will come out of your account within a week. So if you really need something fast, then they can be worth a look. But personally, I've never bothered because I planned ahead. I've either had direct debits sitting on those accounts, the dummy accounts before I switch, or I've used the likes of Plum and Moneybox, which have moved through really fast, or even a quick PayPal one as well. I've got more information about all of these over at becleverwithyourcash.com, as well as the top switching deals and reward accounts. My name's Andy Webb. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time, cheers.